Here's the situation. So essentially in July, employment and unemployment highlight. So there was a lot of data being released on Friday. And basically, total non-farm payroll rose by 70,000, continuing a trend. And unemployment basically ticked up 4.1% to 4.2%. So essentially, is it a tough market for college grads? Unemployed Americans, are they it's taking longer to find jobs? You know, do we have a problem? Do we have a problem with employment? Okay. You know, what's going on with those job numbers? How bad is the U.S. job report? Should market care that the president has sacked head of the Bureau of Statistics? I mean, a lot of things are happening, and a lot of people are wondering what it means. I mean, the president has removed a public servant responsible for crucial economic data out of mindless spite or insecurity. And what's going on with this this job report? Right? As recently as last Thursday, we argued that rate cuts would be a bad decision right now. What is going on? You know, why are these things happening right now? When we look at the July unemployment numbers, we hear lots of news, lots of information, lots of, for example, we hear that the non-farm payroll rose by 73,000, continuing a trend of slow growth since April. Unemployment rate ticked up. Labor's force participation edged down. There were about 55,000 healthcare job gain, 18,000 in social assistance, and obviously federal government lost 12,000 jobs. Manufacturing, construction, retail, professional services showed little or no monthly change, and there's been a downward trend. The averagely hourly work rose by 12 cents to $36. Over the past year, wage increased 3.9%. The average work week rose slightly to 34 hours. And then, more importantly, and that's the doozy, is we had a huge amount of revision. And that's something that I want you to understand. What happened with the revisions? What's the big deal? So basically, what you need to get out of this, three things have happened which are crucial. Three things that you need to understand today. The first one is there are revisions, and I'll explain to you what that means and what did Trump did, what he did. Second, yes, there are lower numbers, employment numbers, but you need to understand how do we get these numbers, right? Those numbers are not, we're not going door to door and say, hey, you got a job? Hey, is there a new job here? Is there a new job? No. These are surveys. So I'll explain to you how the surveys are done. And third, you need to realize one thing. And it depends on which side you want to think about this, but basically, there are less people seeking employment. So you can't just look at it as there are less jobs. Okay, so there are less jobs. That's not good, right? There are less jobs. That's not good. But there are also less people looking for jobs. So the pie is shrinking. So if you're focusing so much on saying, oh, look, that's ridiculous. Look, we are only created, the total non-farm payroll rose only by 73,000. What's going on? We have inflation, we have a recession. And then on top of that, the original numbers from May, we said, well, at least in May, we created 144,000 jobs. And in June, we created 147,000 jobs. Oh, wait. No, that's wrong. So Trump is like, he's like, what do you mean it's wrong? Actually, we did not create 144,000 jobs in May. We created 19,000. And in June, we didn't create 147. We created 14,000. So that's a total revision of 258,000 jobs. These are among the largest 2-month payroll correction in the post-pandemic period since 2020. So, I mean, understand, if you're in charge of anything, you say, well, what happened? This is huge. These are huge numbers. Why are we revising? What are you guys doing down there? Do you know what you're doing? And you have to understand that the Labor Bureau statistics is basically the way they do it. They release monthly employment numbers. That means, but what they do is they have two main surveys. They do the household survey, so they send to household, and then they do the establishment survey, which is a platform payroll. Both are subject to sample variability, especially in small industries or region. And basically, what has been happening, AM 13. What has been happening, this is a very important discussion on employment. So at least I want my subscribers to understand what's happening with the job data. I mean, they're all looking for jobs, so I want you to understand what's going on here. And what's going on is seasonally adjusted data, and from 2003 to present, the average second release revision, second estimate is about 7,000 jobs. The absolute average revision is about 33,000. So how does this, so you guys say you make mistake all the time? Well, in 2024, the pattern slightly tilted downward. There was a mean revision of 16,000, and around 5 to 16,000 they were off. So total downward adjustment was about 20,000 per month. But in 2025, coincidentally, there were dramatic shifts in the revisions. The first half of 2025, I seen unusual large, mostly negative revisions. So in May, like I just told you, we revised these numbers. We thought we created 14. In fact, we didn't create 144. We created 19. That's a revision of 125,000. And then further cut to 19,000. In June, initially it was 147. It was revised to 14. Combined, we're talking about 258. So if you're going to listen to anyone and you're going to hear on both sides, oh my God, you need to realize that, first of all, that is a fact. It is a fact that this was the most dramatic shift in revisions since 2020. So that's one thing. The second thing you need to realize is that there are less people looking for work. Why? Well, the reason that is because of immigration trends. Since 2024, immigration has slowed sharply. That is a fact. And the foreign-born workforce, especially recent arrivals, have declined roughly by 1.65 million people. So if this is the pool of people that are looking for job, it's shrinking. Okay? So, I mean, it's not the job, it's the people looking for the job because of the pattern, right? While the native-born employment rose by 2.65. But, you go up 2.65, you go down 1.65, you basically have 1 million less people looking for jobs. That is a fact. So this shrinking workforce has offset weak job growth, keeping overall employment stable around 4.2%. So from a reality standpoint, what is the unemployment rate? I mean, if it's so bad, well, it's around 4.2%. Is that bad? No, I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, it's not a bad number. So what do I hear all this thing about the job numbers? No, what they're telling you is basically we only created a small amount of job. That is true. But we're also saying that there was a huge revisions, which is true. And number three, we have less people working for job, which is also true. Then you decide where you want to look. Do you want to feel positive? Well, then all you have to say is unemployment is only 4.2%. We are not in a recession. You want to feel negative? Wow, we only created 70,000 jobs. Yeah, but you can't just look at it that way by saying we created less jobs. Yeah, but we have less people looking for a job as well. No, it doesn't mean that everything is great. Obviously, you want more job than less jobs, and but it doesn't mean it's the end of the world either. Depending, of course, it depends. For example, they will tell you that the fact that then, of course, Trump fired. Job must be a reasonable environment. That's correct, said Allegra. But, but, I mean, okay, fine, but it's not the end of the world. At least not yet. The weak job addition in July, combined with a strong, sharp revision, push economists to reconsider the Fed rate outlook. In fact, it's a good thing. It's a fantastic thing. Why? Because they're going to lower the rates. Now they have no reason not to lower the rates. Now you can understand how it's upsetting in a way, because if you had told us in May that instead of having created 144,000 jobs, we only created 19, and then you told us in June that we only created 14, maybe the Fed would have lowered the rates. So there's a lot of things going on here that are a little bit weird, to say the least, a little bit different, and that creates confusion. Of course, some will tell you, but look, we're firing that poor woman from the vulnerabilities statistics because we're accusing her and blaming her for the numbers. Well, it certainly is a lot big revision, right? Back to who knows if that 73,000 number is an actual real number. Maybe it's going to go even lower. Okay, so understandably, someone has to ask a question: what's going on? No, does she need to be fired is a different topic. But of course, the people that are telling you that he's firing this woman at BLS because he says that she falsified the numbers are also saying that, well, sure, he's going to hire his own person. That's going to give him the right number. So now you're telling that new person, even having seen that person, that person is going to give falsified number. So you're accusing the other side of doing the same thing. Do you see and understand? What I want you to first of all, I'd like you to join this channel, but then I want to make sure that you understand what is going on. That's what's going on. There are three stories wrapped into one, and you need to look at all three of them to really understand. The first one you need to understand is there are revisions. That is a fact. The second thing that you need to realize is that we have lower numbers, so political harassment, according to Allegra. And then, of course, the second thing is a lower number. That is a fact. Let's understand what those numbers mean. And then number three, there's not such a big change in unemployment, meaning we have less people looking for jobs. So let's take a look at actually, okay, so fine. So we have some low, okay, we understand the revision. That was a big thing, and who knows what really went on. Maybe it is a difficult job after all, but let's see. So then what do the numbers actually look like? What happened in those numbers? Well, basically, what happened during this unemployment, the job gain that we saw, the 73,000, where are these jobs from? I mean, I would like you to know so you could get jobs over there. Well, out of the 73,000, now remember, they didn't go out and count those jobs one at a time. These are surveys, right? And then, of course, when they don't get the number, they do some extrapolation. But the point is they're saying that 55 of the 73,000 jobs are in healthcare. Think about that if you're looking for jobs, regardless if you think the number is not high enough. And 18,000 in social assistance. These are the jobs that are being looked after. And in the process, not too surprising, the federal government lost 12,000 jobs. So, in other sectors, including manufacturing, construction, and all that, they saw little numbers for July. Now, we'll say that in June and May, these numbers have been coming down. The average hourly earning rose by 12 cents to 36,044 cents. That's the average hourly earnings. So these are weak numbers, obviously, combined with the sharp revision push economists to consider the Fed rate outlook. So, so basically that means that essentially in August, when the Fed meets again, they are going to lower the rates, which is good for you, subscribers. It's very good for you because what this means, it means that they have to lower the rates because unemployment is dropping. The thing that is very upsetting is that, frankly, should they have seen those numbers earlier, they probably would have done it. Unless everything is so polarized that they don't want to do it. But right now, it's fair to say that we are going, market revised up the probability of a September and October rate cut to around 78%. Now, this is dangerous and this is good. Let me explain to you. This is good because for you, you're probably going to see low rates. So if you have adjustable rate mortgages, if you have, if you're going to buy a car, if you're going to buy a house, all those things are going to go down. But what you don't realize is that the stock market, therefore, is assuming that we are going to have a cut, right? So it's pricing the cuts in the stock market. But suppose that the Fed, and let me remind you right now, if you want to know exactly what's going on at the Fed, the way the Fed decides is they basically decides by looking at, they have 12 voting members, right? There's 12 voting members at the Fed. And the Fed basically, and you have about six governors, and you have 5 presidents, and then of course you have the Biden, and you have the Biden, you have the chair. Now the chair is obviously, not going to raise rates. So he doesn't want to do it. At least he didn't want to do it. 3 of the governors are Biden appointees. Coincidentally, they did not want to lower the rate, so that's 3 plus 1 is 4. On the other hand, you've got 2 Trump appointees. They want to lower the rate, so that's 4 against 2. And then you obviously have that governor, believe it or not, coincidentally, another strange coincidence. She literally did not vote. And on top of that, she decided to leave the Fed earlier. She left her job at the Fed. She was supposed to leave in January. She's leaving August 8th, and she did not vote, and a personal reason. Leave me alone. I don't want to talk about it. What's going on here? I don't know. What's going on? I'll tell you what's going on. What's going on is the Fed is under tremendous amount of pressure. The Fed needs to do something. The Fed is under pressure to lower the rates. And the Fed is under pressure from, and I told you that before, that they're pressuring these people in ways that you probably don't realize, and she doesn't want to deal with it. She doesn't want to be tied to any kind of decision one way or the other, and therefore she's leaving and she wants to go and teach where she used to be, which frankly is a great job, and go and teach. That's what they usually end up doing anyway. But the point is, okay, so are we going to have a rate cut? Well, if these things get stronger, so you basically have 3 governors that are going to say no. You're going to have the Fed chair that's going to say no. And then you're going to have 2 Trump people that are going to say yes. She's being replaced this week, by the way. So Trump is going to get somebody who's going to say yes. That's 4 against 3. But then you have 4 more Fed presidents, and 3 of them, 4, 5, 6, 7 are going to say yes because they voted yes before. No change. And then you have another one. So it's still going to be 7 against 4. So even though Trump is pushing and tugging and yanking and yelling and firing, Most of the people at the Fed in August are still on the side of potentially not doing anything. So it's a sensitive topic. Hey, Professor Oak and Spartacus have joined us again for some pertinent comment. So, with the stock, we should wear. I mean, so basically, on one hand, I've got the situation where it would feel like the economy is slowing down, or at least it was slowing. Well, it's definitely slowing down because even after the revision, the numbers are way down. We lost 255,000 jobs that we never had. So those numbers are going to go lower. And on the right, we have the Fed, which is stacked, quote unquote, against, quote unquote, a rate cut. But it's going to be very difficult for them to say, let's wait a little bit longer to see what's happening with the tariffs. Because, my friends, what you need to understand is that regardless of what you think is happening, there's something that's really happening right at the base of it. Suppose, and this is what this channel is about, that's what we call it the black swan, because we're looking for things to go back. We're not here to report the news, we're here to analyze what's going on. Suppose the economy is in fact slowing down for real, right? You need to lower the rates to spur up the economy. I mean, I've seen charts which shows that in the industrial world, things are slowing down. Maybe I don't know if you're there. Maybe you could comment on that. But in building, construction, it's kind of slowing down, right? So if in fact the economy is slowing down and you're not lowering the rates, you are going to make things worse. If the Fed stock rates drop the rates, would the stock go up? Well, yeah, by de facto, right? The reason why rates go down, why the stock market goes up when rates goes up, is because they're both competing for your money. The stock market wants you to put money in the stock market, and the credit markets want you to put money in the credit markets. Like CDs and bonds and things like that. But as the rate goes down, right, it's less attractive. So you want to put your money where the growth is, which is in stocks. The thing is, and this is where it's a little bit perverse, the thing is, what happens is the market might be assuming that we are going to have a rate cut because they're doing exactly what I'm doing, right? And like you're doing now. They're thinking, okay, well, I mean, you're going to lower rates, right? I mean, the economy is weak, everything is weak. So lower the, but I tell you, if I'm on the other side, I say, well, hold on, take it easy, right? I mean, unemployment rate is pretty good. It's only 4%. What are you crying about? You see how easy it is to just look at the other side? The reason why the unemployment is, yeah, I mean, you have less job creation, but you people just let go 1 million people. We just lost 1 million people. You kicked them out or whatever. So there's less people looking for jobs. 2.6 million born in this country went up to get jobs. 1 million some six, 1 million six. What's the number I gave you? I think we lost 1.6 million people not born in this country being asked to basically asked to leave, right? I want to give my subscribers correct numbers here. The foreign-born workforce, especially recent arrivals, has declined roughly 1.65 million since mid to 2024. The native-born employment rose by 6.5 million. Hey, Carmine. So we basically only went up by 1.6 million people because you went up by 2.65 million people looking for jobs, but you lost 1.65 million that were looking for jobs, but they were not, they quote unquote foreign born, so they had to leave. So at the end of the day, well, employment is 4.1%. I mean, come on. Let me give you what I mean to compare apples and apples. What is the what is the unemployment rate in I don't know in France, right? Unemployment in France is 7.4%. Okay. What about in the UK? Unemployment rate in the UK is about 4.6%. Okay. What about Canada? What's the unemployment rate in Canada? It is 6.9%. Mexico? What's the unemployment rate in Mexico? Unemployment rate in Mexico is very low. It's about 2.6%. Wow. About Germany, I mean that 4.2%, 4.1% is not that bad, people. I mean, I want my subscribers to be informed. 3.7%. Okay, so and that's a dangerous thing, right? Because the Fed could say, well, okay, well, I know, but they could tell you the argument I just gave you that basically, you know, this is not really that bad, and don't get carried away because again, you know, he may actually do it, and this time I think somebody's going to hit the roof. He's going to say, well, let's see what happened with the tariffs. How do you know if the tariffs are going to cause inflation? Because I don't want inflation, right? So the market, and to answer that question that someone says, well, what about the market? You know, what are we concerned about the stock market and the fact that rates are going to go up? Well, um, you need to realize one thing is that you have to be careful that the market does not assume, right? You have to make sure that the market doesn't assume that it's actually not doing it, right? You have to make sure that the market doesn't think for 1 second that because if the stock market assumes, like we do right now, right? Because if you look at the numbers, you listen to the news, everybody's saying we have that rates are going to be lower, then it's going to say, okay, fine, now let's raise the stock price now. It doesn't wait until the day of August 25th. No, it's going to act now. And of course, the danger, and it depends what are the forces at play here, and that's difficult to say. You don't know what these people are really thinking. You don't really know what the Fed is driven, what Powell is thinking. I mean, he's going to have even the fact that he's going to have more dissent within his ranks, but he still has a majority of the people on his way. You have a job is down, yes, but according to Pablo Escobar, but job is down. What does that mean? It means that we only have 73,000 jobs created. Okay, and it's lower than we usually have. Okay, and the numbers in May and June have been revised from 144 to 19 and 147 to 14. So that's a revision of 255,000. That's a lot. But like again, you have less job opening, but you have less people looking for jobs. The thing is, and this is probably what does the administration react, is there was a huge amount of revision. That's a huge amount of revision, and Escobar, rightfully so, he says it's fake. Well, I mean, he's not totally wrong. What do you mean my numbers are fake? No, my numbers are real. My number is real. Take a look at everywhere. The May number is 144,000, down 19,000, and the June number is 144, down to 14,000, and the estimate is zebra cake. Is real. So the numbers are weak, are small, but then we have less people looking for. The question that you need to ask yourself is, so where are the jobs? But according to what I'm seeing, and I want you to know, industries, healthcare, and social assistance led the gain. construction, manufacturing, and federal government basically shed jobs. Now, is there manipulation? I mean, you have to prove something like that. But the point is, it is a bit cute. So don't forget what. Let me explain to you what I have you all there. What's going on with this channel and what is it that what we're here for. And I'm not here to tell you what's going on because I think you've heard the news. You heard that the job numbers are down. That woman got fired. What we're here for is discuss exactly what the heck does that mean and what does it mean for you? Because that's very important for you to understand because it's going to impact the rates, it's going to impact a bunch of things. But in addition to this, I am looking for other things as well. I'm not just looking at the economy. We're going to be talking about Maxwell, right? Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm sure news are going to come out something very soon about her. We're going to talk about the stock market. We're going to talk about the dollar, the tariffs, over the next couple of weeks. Powell, obviously, that's what's happening right now. Israel, don't forget Israel. We have potential huge issue going on. China, which is decoupling. And I don't know if you know, I just found out regarding China and the rare earth mineral, they are hesitating, and this is where you have to be careful. They're hesitating in giving rare earth mineral to the U.S. for the purpose of weaponry. Okay, so be careful. And inflation, everybody says it's coming, it's coming. No one has seen it yet, so we'll see. Russia, obviously, is a big issue. We need to find out what's going on with Russia because Trump has sent two submarine. Not that, I'm going to use a submarine, but Trump is upset. And the reason he's upset is because the big top, I think something that I want you to understand. Give me 30 seconds here. Let me explain to you something that you need to understand so you could put this all into perspective, is what's happening. And that's the reason why Russia and China are not reacting, is they don't care anymore. They are starting to form a bloc. And Trump and the U.S. government realize that they need to break that bloc, either to be friendly with Putin, nothing is working, pulling India away from China. Is that working? I'm not so sure. I'm going to do a video on India pretty soon, but I think it's kind of a disaster because they're not doing too well right now, especially with India. So India is very upset at the U.S., and that's going to be an impact because this impacts you. This impacts you enormously because if these people stay together, what's going to happen? They're going to work together. And at some point, they're already part of BRICS. They may not need the dollar. They may not need the U.S. So forget about trying to make America great again. You need to make America relevant, keep America relevant. That's the whole idea behind this entire process. I'm telling you right now. They're just trying to make sure the U.S. does not become irrelevant. Is that working? Well, I'm certainly talking about the U.S. day in and day out, but is it working? Are you preventing these people to play together, to work together, and then ignoring you, and then they're done with you? Is that a possibility? No way. Well, then why are we working so hard? Why are the administration working so hard to get people to pay attention and to pressure them in one way or the other? So we shall see. Now, as far as jobs, because this is kind of the discussion that we're having today, I think that several things that needs to happen. And then there's certain weakness in the job situation. Let me explain to you what I'm seeing. Okay. So, for example, is a tough job market for new college grad, right? Is an advanced degree worth it? Okay. Everyone, and I see often students saying, "Oh, I want to. Maybe if I get more degrees, it's going to help me get a better job." Unfortunately, what's happening right now, as far as the job situation, especially for college degree, and if you're one of them, or if you know, even in I'm talking about all over the world, really. More and more, especially in the U.S., but it's also in India and Africa. What's happening, and in Europe, what's going on right now is that it's important to realize that employers want people with more, that people want. You've missed, Paul is saying the major point, no more pushing the USA around. Well, yeah, I mean, basically, when we say it's a code word. Stop pushing the USA around. Mean basically, don't ignore me and make sure I'm still relevant. They're not pushing you around. What they're doing is they're just ignoring you and say, hey, listen, if you want to buy the stuff, give me dollars and I'll sell it to you, but I'm not moving over to bring the factories over to the US. That's not going to happen. That's what they were doing. So I guess if you're saying that's pushing around, yeah, it is pushing around. But at the same time, what they're doing, they are, they have gotten used to the U.S. being irrelevant because, quite frankly, you're not making your own medicine, you're not making your own chips. You're losing ground everywhere, quite frankly, and do something then about it. Then do something. That's a fact. In the next 5 to 10 years, the U.S. is going to lose the race for the semiconductors, for example. It's not just Republicans. Biden put the chip tax. What do you think he put the chip tax together? Because it's only 5 to 10 years, and then that's it. The U.S. is making almost. What is it? What's the share of the chips made in the U.S.? I believe the share is very, very small. Semiconductors, as of 2025, the U.S. holds just 12% of global semiconductor fabrication capacity, a drop from 37% in 1990. And it's like that all over. So you need to make sure that that doesn't happen. So they take advantage or they're forgetting about the U.S. The point is, back to my situation with unemployment with recent graduate, the unemployment rate for recent graduate, like 22, 27, was 4.8% in May. That is above now the overall average of 4.2%. This is up from 4.3% in May 2023. So basically, the overall unemployment rate rose, to 4%, around 4%. So what's going on? What will the potential for improved employment prospects and higher long-term earnings outweigh the cost of obtaining a graduate degree? That's a question. Do I need to spend, I don't know how much, I think it's $50, sometimes $60,000 a year to get a 4-year degree? Because I'm seeing I'm not getting the job that I want. What you're seeing really is that AI is basically taking away the entry-level jobs of tasks that can be performed by AI. What you need to do, and if you know anyone that's looking for a job as entry-level, you need to tell them 2 things. First, you need to tell them that they need to network. Go to trade school. Well, believe it or not, that is not a bad advice. And you have to go, even within the fact that you're doing undergraduate or graduate study, you need to go kind of a trade school in the sense that you need to know how to do something. You cannot just go to classes and basically take, you need to have experiential learning. You need to do an internship. And then you need to network. You need to do a bunch of things because now, and then you have to be careful that whatever you're going to be doing is not going to be replaced by AI. AI right now does a lot of things. You could literally tell AI, create a course for me. You could tell AI, can you, for example, read all these documents and tell me which one is best. You could give a 10K of financial information to a ChatGPT. You upload a PDF file which contains all the financial information, and you tell ChatGPT to calculate the ratios and give you an opinion. I mean, maybe they got it wrong. Maybe they don't know. Most of the younger generation don't want to learn a trade. I mean, right now, if you're a plumber, you make good money, let me tell you. And you know what? That cannot be replaced by AI. So you need to realize these things. If you have kids that are going to go to college or they're thinking of going to college, you got to make sure that whatever they do, they know they actually they have experience. They get involved in projects. They get involved in networking. Also, make sure that they actually network. Right? Don't just work for a GPA. Then you graduate and then you look, quote unquote, for a job. No, you don't look for a job. You want the job to look for you. And of course, what's happening, I will tell you, a little bit of a secret, I guess, but most jobs are created by small firms, not by the big, big, big firms. And unfortunately, if you're only looking for the big firm because you're aware of them, then you miss the boat on all the small firms that are hiring. And that's something that you need to tell them. You need to tell them that you need to look for jobs in small firms because most of the jobs are created by small companies, not large companies. I mean, they have a lot of employees, but doesn't mean this is it. So the answer, it will, so basically, there is an alluring earning premium that typically comes with a graduate degree, 18% on average, for someone with a master's degree. So I'm going to get paid more money. This is great. The problem is that earnings premium has pretty much stayed around 18% over the past 30 years, while the borrowing for graduate school has increased by nearly 50% between 2000 and 2020. So the cost is going higher than the premium that you're getting. This means if you intend to take out a loan to pay for grad schools, more of any additional earnings are likely to be eaten up by debt repayments. So at the end of the day, maybe it's not worth it. Okay? There's a 2020 survey of 1,000 graduate students. Nearly half of the borrowers said their final borrowing time was more than they expected going in. So, and that's a big issue that you're going to have with what's going to happen with the amount of borrowing that these people are getting into, that they may not ever going to be able to pay it back. So they're wondering, is it worth it? Especially now that you're coming out, you're learning your nice degree, and you're going in, and AI is basically taking over. AI is taking over. Have you heard Microsoft? Have you heard what's going on with Microsoft? Okay? They are redesigning the jobs. You know what that means? That means they're looking at your job and they're saying, okay, can AI do this job? For the tech industry, revenue per employee has become a price performance metric. Okay? They're thinking maybe there's a way for have one person that creates a $1 billion company all by himself or by herself. Even coders, hiring coders has dropped off the cliff, and almost daily they'll deliver AI process versus humans. Among the latest is how one Big Four firm has slashed turnaround times for research by 75%, reclaiming 3,600 analyst hours by using AI-generated reports. Exactly what I'm talking about. One thing you may or may not be aware of, in the world of hedge funds, for example, what the big thing it is, what they want to know is they want to beat the stock market. So what they do is they basically look at very complex paper written by very, very good quants, and the students try to mimic what was written. But then they realize, you know what? We could have AI to do that for us. The AI could go in and read all this stuff for you and synthesize and give it to you. So be careful. AI could become an issue at some point, and you might lose it. Okay, so what's going on? Overall, what's happening is the issues that we're going to have is that you're going to lose that ability to become relevant because of AI. But that's neither here nor there, right? Because the question for today is new job data could change everything. Yes. It could change everything. It could change the way we are thinking and we're looking at what's happening at the Fed right now. What is the Fed going to do in August? What are the future numbers? Do we have an employment number in the country? No. Right now your unemployment rate is only 4.1%. So don't tell me that this is bad. I mean, it is not good, right? It's been revised downward. But then again, your pool is shrinking. What you need to understand is what's happening. The only thing is you will not know really what's happening right away because it takes a while for everything to permeate. The fact is this, though, okay? If you were to look at the numbers of, especially when it comes down to cyclical jobs, right? Over the past, since August 2023 until now, the private jobs have gone down, That is sure. And definitely the government jobs have gone down as well, because in the past 6 months, the US economy has produced about 500,000 new jobs, half as many as were created in the 6 months before. But don't forget, you can't just look at that. You have to realize, but there's a lot less people looking for job as well. So we don't need as many jobs as before. Now, to which extent that is true, we'll see, but at least understand that principle. And that's why I created this channel. And please join it because I want you to be informed about all the things that are going to go going forward. There's about 10 items that we're following every single week and every single day, literally, to understand what's going on in this world that we're living, right? Private job creation has declined a lot. The thing is but without the fall in government hiring, the conversation would have been much less dramatic. Okay. The point is, you're being told that we're losing jobs, there's less job available, but in a different conversation, you're also being told that a lot less people are looking for work, but they're not tying the two together. You have to tie the two together. And of course, in the middle of all this, to make things even more complicated, the numbers that we're looking are being revised in an unprecedented fashion. Now, you could say that the administration, U.S. administration, is very, very, let's put it, say, rambunctious and confusing, right? And create a lot of issues for everybody else. But you have to realize that so are everybody else. What is this thing that in 2025 we had? What's the number look like? We had the largest amount. This is a fact. For example, in 2024, the revised number was 16,000, 5,000, 20,000, right? But in 2025, the first half of 2025 has been unusually large, mostly negative revisions. Something is going on here, right? Certainly, they shouldn't be hiring people in other countries to answer calls from America about technical support. In May, initially reported 144. Now we're saying it's not 144, it's 19. I mean, come on. These are. I hope you realize that these are big numbers. These are big changes. In June, we said we had 147. In fact, we had 14. The question is there something going on here? Is Trump correct when he said that woman is lying? She doesn't know what she's doing. Not only she doesn't know, but I think she falsified the numbers. Is that what's happening? I don't know. But I mean, there certainly are lots and lots and lots of coincidence, I would say. Tremendous amount of coincidence. And of course, Trump, in his usual way, is basically going to go after and make some big changes. Combined, we have, I don't know if you realize, but combined, 258,000 jobs just vanished. They vanished. We thought we had them, we don't have them. But then the next logical question is to say, well, hold on. So when the Fed decided whether or not to lower or raise the rates, when they look at the numbers, they say, what you made 147,000. I mean, that's not bad. If you were told that, no, it's not 147, we only created 14, maybe they would have raised the rate, lowered the rates. But they didn't. So now, obviously, all focus is on, but why are we firing this poor woman? That's not fair. And now you're going to hire someone that's going to give you the number that you want. Really? So what's good for the goose is not good for the gander? You need to understand these things. You need to understand because you need to understand the big picture, because the big picture will impact you, right? Well, how is it going to impact you? I will tell you. Right now, what's happening is we're assuming that rates are going to go lower. There's a 75% chance. But what you don't realize is maybe there are forces at play here, even within the Fed, that might decide that, no, I mean, there's only 4% unemployment. I just told you, right? Were you there when I told you what the unemployment rates were in other countries? For example, in what do we have? Germany, unemployment rate, the registered rate is 6%. The rate over in that's Germany. What about talk to me about Mexico is actually pretty low, 2.7%. Everybody works in Mexico. Let's talk about Canada. Canada is at 7.8, 6.3, 5.5, 7.3. Canada is unemployment rate as of June is 6.9%, my friends. So 4%. What's the big deal? Right? We don't need to lower rates that quickly. Don't say that, because if the market assumes that rates are going to lower, so the stock market is going to go up, assuming, and if you don't get that, then it's going to go down. And obviously, the Trump administration want lower rates. Because don't forget, what you may not realize is that suppose they are correct. Suppose the economy is in fact slowing down, and then you're not lowering the rates, then you're going to make things even worse, unless you want to make it worse. Why? You want the current administration to fail? Powell is not impartial? By now, I mean, if you didn't like Trump before, I'm not so sure if he likes him anymore now. Especially now, I will tell you, whatever happens, if you thought that there were only two dissent at the Fed in 30 years, now you're going to have these two people are going to be dissenting again. One of them wants to be next Fed chair. Then the person that Trump is going to hire this week to replace the Fed chair that left very recently, a Fed governor. I mean, these are big news, and I want you to be informed and understand what's happening, because these makes a huge difference. They're going to make huge difference, and these are big changes in your lives, believe it or not. I mean, she left. The Kruger, her name is Adriana Kruger, announced she will resign effective August 8th. Whoa, really? But you weren't supposed to leave on, and these are cushy jobs, quite frankly. I think she makes about $200 and something thousand, 225 or something as a governor, and she left earlier. She was supposed to leave in January 2026. She's going to leave right now. And not only didn't she leave, she also did not vote last week. So when somebody does that, it means I don't want any trouble, because everything gets later on, right? When in August they're going to release the notes of what happened in that meeting, and you're going to find out whether or not how she voted. I didn't vote for personal reason. I don't want to deal with this anymore. That's basically what she's saying. This is too complex. This is too much pressure. I don't know what type of pressure they put her under. Maybe she put herself. Who knows? But the point is, she's returning to academia. Kugler will go back to teaching at Georgetown. She framed her departure as a personal and professional choice. She did not cite ideological differences or policy disputes, and opens door for Trump, obviously, to appoint a more aligned governor and reshape the Fed composition. It heightened concern about the Fed independence and political influence. Well, I mean, it's interesting that when someone like that leaves, it becomes, well, it's not really political influence. You're trying to influence the Fed. Be careful when you say things like that, because in 2021, when the Fed did not raise rates during the Biden administration after COVID, and then they themselves said, you know what, it was a mistake. I should have raised the rates. So why didn't you? Because it's the Biden administration, or because you made a mistake? No, I made a mistake, obviously. And then just before the election last year, you lowered the rates. You know what I mean? And this year, you're not doing anything. Why is that? Why aren't you not lowering the rates? Right? What's going on? You're not lowering the rates because you feel that it is not the right thing to do right now. And why don't you think it's the right thing to do? Because you're not, because you don't think that it's going to be an issue. And why is it not going to be an issue? It's not going to be an issue because, frankly, we don't need to do it. Be careful. One thing you need to understand is this, and this impacts you obviously, is that it takes time for the rates. By the time you lower the rates, right? By the time you lower the rates, it takes a long time before it impacts you. The market doesn't react on a dime. So if you have a job that is like that, right? And they're not lowering the uncertainty because tariffs are on and off and on. Yes, Professor Oak is right. There is a fair amount of uncertainty. But so why is Trump playing around, quote unquote, with the tariffs? Why do you think he's doing it? Well, because basically we're trying to, bring the job to the U.S. Really? You think that's the real reason? Don't. One thing you have to start doing from now on if you're going to be a subscriber, don't listen to what they tell you. Don't listen to what they tell you. Listen to what they're not telling you. Be like Socrates. Basically, what you want to do is you want to get up and know that you don't know anything. So when they tell you that Trump is doing that, is raising the tariffs so he could make some money, or he's trying to bring he's trying to bring the business into the U.S., realistically speaking. Think about this for 1 second. So these countries are now going to come, quote unquote, come over to the U.S. How is that going to happen? Right? How long is it going to happen? How many years is this going to happen? You don't have that kind of time. So what is he doing then? Well, that's a question. Maybe, just maybe, because the U.S. is becoming less and less relevant, right? It knows that it cannot get these businesses in. That's the reason why he's saying, you know what, forget the coming over, give me some cash, give me some money, I want some investments. Bring the money right now. That's what he's doing, right? He's basically, he said, I want them to come and build in the U.S., so if you make the stuff here, then you don't have to pay. But no, the idea is just give me, like he asked Japan, basically. We told Japan, give me $550 billion, and give me the $550 billion, invest in the U.S. And France and Europe, give me $600 billion, you're going to invest in the U.S. And by the way, the latest news on that is that this is being postponed, by the way. That's $600 billion. Let me double check that information for you. But I believe is that the Europe deal is being delayed with Trump. That's because they need more time, or they want to make sure that it's okay. 15% the tariff in exchange for a deal allowing Europe agreed to suspend its plan. Oh, no. It has planned to suspend its planned retaliation for 6 months. Well, you bet. Who pays for the tariffs? The people or the foreign government? No, the foreign government don't pay the tariffs. Again, be careful what you hear. They say, well, Europe is going to pay. They don't pay the tariffs. What it is if you have wine and you want to ship it to the U.S., the government is not shipping anything. A company is shipping. Who is that company? The company is a wholesaler. They will ship it. Whoever pass it across the border, Ching pays. And if it's an American company, like right now, GM is paying the tariffs, although they're not passing it to everyone. This is what the Trump. Yes, of course. And again, Trump, it cuts both ways, right? Trump will say they're going to pay for it. Well, not technically, right? Now, of course, it impacts them because if tomorrow you're saying that steel, for example, which is true, is at 50% tariffs, who is going to want to buy your steel? Nobody's going to want to buy your steel at 50%. Even if it doesn't matter who pays for it, right? If you're an importer, for example, Ford right now is screaming bloody murder because they're a big importer of aluminum and they're paying a lot of tariffs for that. So they're paying for it. But of course, if it becomes too expensive, then they won't buy it. Then, of course, Europe is going to say, well, nobody's buying my steel because you make it so expensive. So it impacts them. You see, there's a fine line between what's going on and what's really going on. So basically, with Trump, what's happening right now in the U.S. administration, what they want now, they want you to bring the money, literally invest. I don't want to wait for it. I want you to take $600 billion and invest in the country. And that woman, Van Leyen, the European president of the time, she basically said, okay, fine, I'll invest $600 billion. The only thing is she committed $600 billion from private companies. And now it appears that, well, frankly, technically, you cannot, commit private companies to do that. So we're not in a position to commit these things. Right? So what's happening is, that's what's happening. He doesn't want them to build something in the U.S. He wants them to bring the money directly. And that's why he said, okay, we're going to get $600 billion from the private companies. Then I want Europe to spend $750 billion, that is a fact, over the next 3 years into the U.S. Except that at the end of the day, it's $250 billion a year, but the Europe doesn't need that much energy. They're already ordering, I think, at most maybe $100 billion from the U.S. They're going to order another 250. Why? They're going to not order from other countries and order from the U.S. instead? So what's going on? What's going on? Basically, he wants to disrupt the world order so everybody pays, quote-unquote, attention to the U.S. so that the U.S. becomes relevant again. Europe should buy more from, yes, that's what he wants. And there is a trade deficit, right? I'm not going to get too much in economics, but the U.S. already has a trade deficit. They cannot afford a trade deficit and a fiscal deficit for too long. That's a big thing to bear. So basically, what we're going to say is that the U.S., right, wants to remain relevant, and I'll explain to you what it means for you. And to do that, he's using the tariffs plus the quote-unquote investment as a mean to come to the U.S. Of course, he's going to make some money through the tariffs, but ultimately, he knows very well that it's not them paying, but he wants that investment money, right? So basically, I'm going to charge you only 15%. Oh, thank you. But by the way, you need to invest 600, 700. And they're saying, okay, but this is not such an easy thing for Trump, I will tell you, or the U.S. administration, because these people, like when Japan said, I'm going to give you $600 billion, they said, well, hold on, I'm not giving you cash. These are mostly loans that I'm giving you. And plus anything is in writing and we need to talk some more. So there's no given that these people are actually going to give that money. So that's one thing that he's doing. And of course, the other thing that the administration is doing is that they're trying to pry apart China, Russia, and India. This is important. They're causing up very much, because you will notice that plus, because these three are not really responding to Trump. I mean, they're listening to him. They're saying, "Okay, I agree. I don't want to disagree with you," but they're not saying yes. I mean, he has been after Russia for a while. He said, "I'm your friend. Let's get together." He's trying to pry apart China from Russia, and bring Russia closer to the U.S. Unfortunately, the government is not, and the U.S. government is not going to make it easy for them, because I think they're voting a bunch of things against China and Russia at the same time. So it's not easy. He's telling people, "You're not listening to me. These people are going to get together. They're going to play in the yard by themselves, and we're not going to be invited." And then if on top of that we're being left behind with the rest of the world, and on top of that we don't know how to make things anymore, we are going to be relevant. One, you're not making things, right? You're not. I mean, you're making it, but you're losing ground, right? Chips manufacturing, you're losing ground in chips manufacturing. You're not making any of your pharmaceutical product. Most of the medicine that's being made, and I don't think in September when you get your shots, flu shots, none of it is made in the U.S. So you don't know how to make any of that at all. So you're not making things. Two, they're forgetting about you, right? Basically, what they're doing is that China and Russia are doing their thing. They're talking to you. Russia's invading Ukraine, right? But they're not really impacting you at all. Okay, and then three, what's happening is China, and then on top of that, you're less relevant. They're forgetting about you, and then on top of that, the problem is that you have lots of debt. So it's not easy to move around. And that's what he's doing. The U.S. is trying to maneuver all these things together, and trying to be nice with Russia. That didn't work. With India, did not like at all the fact that India basically is buying all of the oil from Russia. Right? That's not working either. I mean, for the U.S. Now, of course, you're going to say, "Oh, but," and this is where you have to understand both sides of the coin. Russia is because you want to stop them from fighting in Ukraine, right? That's why you're doing it. No, he's not doing that for that. It's nothing to do with you. Well, it has to do with Ukraine, but you have to look at what they're not telling you, right? He's basically asking Russia to come and play with me. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem if you don't play with me. Then I'm going to have to help Ukraine then. But then, by Trump helping Ukraine and sending weapons to Ukraine, what is going to happen? It's going to be a problem, right? Because the MAGA people, because he's got to contend about that, they do not want to be involved in another war. And he's basically telling them, in fact, I think the MAGA people and Trump are getting further and further apart. He's telling them, well, you're living in a dream world. Right? If you think that we could just stay by ourselves and forget about the rest of the world, I will tell you there's a bad sign happening. There's a bad sign happening because right now, Trump and the U.S. want rare earth mineral with China, right? And what's happening with that? Okay, what did China say about rare earth mineral? I just want to give you the exact information, but I don't think that they want to give the U.S. rare earth mineral for and defense. They don't mind giving it to you for the cell phones, but if it's going to go into a weapon, they don't want to give it to you. They don't want to give it to the U.S. Why? I thought we have an agreement. Okay. In April, China imposed export restriction on 7 rare earth mineral elements and permanent magnets. You need the magnets. That's very important. They emphasize that these measures are targeted dual-use technology critical to national security. Why? Why not giving me what I need? Because rare earth export rules are a legal, security-driven response to U.S. tariff with a deliberate focus on dual use of mineral tied to defense. So they don't want, and that's the warning side, they don't want the U.S. to have rare earth mineral because of the fact that they could use weapon against them. Why? We're going to have a war? No, that's not possible. Defense contractors face immediate disruption. Urgency is mounting to establish alternative source before military systems are jeopardized. U.S. defense contractor face immediate disruption. Urgency is mounting to establish alternate source of military, and the military system are jeopardized. Because why? They've been relying for so long on China for rare earth mineral, and they forgot how to make it. The U.S., unfortunately, is becoming irrelevant as far as and rare earth minerals. So China's position, export licensing used in defense, and DoD invest in domestic rare earth production. They don't want to give it to you anymore. Does it mean that it's going to be war? Well, I mean, not necessarily. It's just that just in case we have one, I'd be stupid for me to give a weapon you're going to use against me. So as you could see, and what we're kind of doing here, we kind of act as if we are like in a security council and trying to decide what's happening, because obviously if there's a war, you don't want to visit there. Obviously, if the U.S. is getting weaker and weaker and weaker, you don't want to be in those industries, right? And if the job market is weakening, that's not good. You shouldn't be in manufacturing. Right now, you probably want to be in healthcare, quite frankly, and social services, because that's doing quite well. I mean, the numbers show it. So you see what I mean? There's a lot of issues that you need to deal with right away before it comes out of control. And all these elements are moving very fast. And unfortunately, I will tell you, out of all the elements that I'm following on this channel for you, between the Ghislaine Maxwell story, the economy, the stock market, the dollar, the tariffs, what are we going to do with the Fed? What is Israel going to do? Because they're a bit out of control there with Netanyahu. The China decoupling, inflation. Is they going to have inflation or we're not? Because everybody said that inflation is coming, and we haven't seen it. And then the Russia situation. And of course, the constant turmoil, quote unquote, that we have in the administration. Now, we have to be careful when we say that the administration is on turmoil, because it appears like a big mess. If you look, Nathan says, if you look at the long term, over the next 3 years, the U.S. economy is doing fantastic with GDP was up 3%. Be careful what you hear, right? GDP was, technically, if you want to put your positive hats on, right? Let's put our positive hat. 1, 3% GDP. 2, 4% unemployment. Maybe holding high rates, Professor Oak says, keep inflation away. There are lots of them all over. The refining is where China. No, exactly. It's all over. It's just you have to learn how to do it. If you forgot how to do it, then the U.S. forgot how to do it. I didn't even know where rare earth mineral was until Trump's jarring, what's his name, Zelensky about it. I said, what does he want a rare earth mineral for? I didn't think it was such a big deal. But the point is, it is a big deal. Now, putting my positive hat on, okay, we have only 4% unemployment in the U.S., 4 point something. It's lower than the other countries, quite frankly. B, GDP, the latest GDP numbers show a growth of 3%. Stock market is up. Rates are going to be lowered. What is it not to like? So be careful of what you hear. Of course, they're going to tell you, no, I know. Right now it's great, but tomorrow it's not going to be great. Now, of course, if you keep saying the house is going to burn, the house is going to burn, the house is going to burn, you're not going to move in the house. And that's not good, right? You need to move in the house eventually, right? You're scaring the kids. That's what you're doing most of the time. You're scaring the kids. Don't scare the kids. Don't tell them that the tooth fairy is real either, but don't keep scaring the kids. But then again, if you want to get people's attention, you tell them, hold on, it's not really that way. It's not really that other way either. It's a kind of in the middle, and we'll see what happens. What is that? I can't deal with that. And that's the issue that I have with everything that you hear, right? When people tell you things like, buy these stocks, I'm always correct. I know exactly. I have found a way to make money in the stock market. Don't believe them. That's not possible, because if they did, they wouldn't be here talking about it. They would just make money for themselves. If we knew anything about all this, you wouldn't have to do cheap vlogs like this. Wow, that is so cruel. Well, yes, of course, right? But I mean, I'm here to kind of inform you as to what's happening. Do you want to be trying to understand your world? It's like, consider this like a class, right? It's like the way I would teach my graduate student, my undergraduate, or my employees, or my investors, right? It's the same thing. I'm just telling, I've been doing it for, take a look at my channel. I've been doing this for 3 years, for all of those things, right? What do? I try to explain to you what's happening. I'm not trying to, you may not like what you hear. That's different. And then, of course, you say, well, obviously you're saying that because you don't like him, or you like him, or you... No, it has nothing to do with that. You need to understand the world that you're living in. That's it. Not selling anything. I'm not trying to buy anything. I'm trying to explain what's happening. And you need to understand what's happening. But more importantly, you also need to know that you're not going to know what's happening. Okay. For example, when it comes down to the stock market, don't try to make money in the stock market. That's a bad idea. What you want to do is try not to lose any. And the way you avoid losing any is by hopefully listen to what I'm saying. But basically, you need to look for black swan. Right? There was a book written about a black swan by Taleb Nassim, and he did quite well for himself, I must say. And the idea is to look for items that are going to take away from what you have. That could take away your job, could take away your stock portfolio, because it could happen. We are in this environment right now where things are moving very fast. Now, of course, you can blame the U.S. administration and say, well, it's your fault that you're doing all this. Well, if there's it's a little bit like if there is a fire and you keep sending the fireman, you say, well, the fireman caused the fire. Right? That's the same story with, believe it or not, they use that analogy with cholesterol. Good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. There's no such thing as bad cholesterol. It happens to be that the bad cholesterol is over there when there's a heart attack, so they're saying it's a bad. But just because they are firemen whenever there's a fire doesn't mean that the fireman is causing the fire. I mean, I don't want to get too much into the correlation versus causation, but these are concepts that you need to understand. You can't believe anything that anybody... Yes. Why do you think that more people are listening on YouTube, right, versus Netflix or listening to CNN and all these things? Why do you think that is? Because why are firefighters at the scene of the fire unless they are guilty? Yeah, exactly. Oh, you know what? It's Trump's fault. Oh, you know what? It's Biden's fault because it was... No. You can't. This is what is called correlation versus causation. People always confuse. You eat a lot of cholesterol and therefore you have a heart attack. Therefore, cholesterol gives heart attack. So what do? We should do a show on this actually. Let's remove the cholesterol. So therefore, there won't be a heart attack. Do you know what happens to you? Let's see if you know this. What happens to you if you remove all the cholesterol in your body? Let's see if someone knows about the answer to that question. What happens if you get rid of all the cholesterol in your body? I'm going to start giving prices out. Can you live without cholesterol? Everybody's checking, I'm sure. Going to chat GPT and say, what is he talking about cholesterol? Exactly. You will collapse and you will die. You need cholesterol. I don't know how we get into this topic, but let's get back into the data, job data. But basically, you need cholesterol to live. And they're telling you cholesterol is, as correlated to heart attack. Then I'm confused. Exactly. Can I have my price? I'm gonna work on a way to start giving prices out. In fact, you know what? I'm gonna start a special channel that you have access to. I'll give to some of you access to it, where I give stock recommendations or whatever, some bonus prices that way. But that's important to know. So basically, what we're saying right now, as far as correlation and causation, is what's causing the unemployment to go down, and what's causing the economy to collapse. I will tell you right now that, frankly, what has caused uh, um, recessions in the past, we don't have a recession, right? Recession, okay, are basically caused by a lack of liquidity. Okay, this means that in the past, when there was a lot of recessions, for example, the recessions were caused by lack of money supply. The money supply actually collapsed, and that's what caused a recession. So does it mean that going forward that's going to happen again, that we could have a recession? You don't have a recession just like that. Especially, I don't see anything right now giving us any indication that, in fact, let me tell you exactly what caused recession so we're on the same page. Well, I believed, what causes, what are the main causes of recession? So I don't want you to start worrying too much about recession, because they all keep saying inflation. They're going to talk about stagflation and things like that. Refining metal was a dirty process, and the environment regulators made this impossible to permit this in the U.S. Well, that's true too, right? It's no, you're going to pollute the energy. Okay, then let China do it. China do it, and now you're begging them for the rare earth mineral. So basically, what caused recession in the past? Demand shock, like drop in spending. Consumer and businesses cut spending suddenly. For example, COVID. High interest rate could cause recession. Falling asset prices, layoff. For example, the 2008 Great Recession, credit crunch, and housing collapse reduced consumption. COVID-19. That's a demand shock. You could have a supply shock. For example, a disruption in the availability of key goods and services. Oil crisis, war, pandemic, global supply chain bottlenecks. Right? If tomorrow China says, that's it, we're closed. We're closed for business. Do you know what happens? Do you know what it is that you're getting from China? Okay. You're probably not gonna like that. But this is what we get, that the U.S. get from China. Get ready. Basically, the U.S. is heavily reliant on Chinese exports for critical supply chains. For example, 50% of circuit boards come from China, which is core of all electronic devices. So if they don't want to give that to you tomorrow, you got a supply problem. Smartphone, tomorrow, no more phones. Computer chips, heavy U.S. dependence. Lithium battery, 80% global capacity comes from China. If tomorrow they say we are closed for business, we're just going to deal with China and India, and we don't want to talk to you anymore. I mean, it's simplifying, but you could have a supply chart right there. Pharmaceutical and medical supplies. You could check all these things. Active pharmaceutical ingredient, API, 70 to 80%. Cholesterol you eat has little to do with cholesterol is in your body. Since your body makes it, is from you. Exactly. You need cholesterol. That's how you protect yourself. U.S. dependence, nearly 100% of antibiotics come from China. Vitamin C, ibuprofen, majority comes from China. PPE, masks, gloves, major supplier from China. Rare earth minerals, 70 to 80% of U.S. supply comes from China. Solar panels, 80 to... No, you're going to say, how did we get in a position like that? Well, you got in a position like that, like this guy said before. When you make this stuff, it gets dirty. It's polluting. And you want it to stay clean, right? Well, you clean, but you can't make any of those things. EV battery, dominant producer. Graphite for battery, 80%. Now, of course, you say, well, China is not a bad person. I mean, they're just making what you didn't want to make. Then just buy it from them. Why is a contentious situation that we have with them now, right? Because Trump wants it that way. But why? Why is he doing that? That's the question. Why is Trump picking a fight with China? Or maybe he's not picking a fight. Maybe he knows what China is really going to do, and your guess is as best as mine. But if China is looking to decouple very slowly and surely, then you have a problem, because they could put you in a recession by closing up, and you get none of that. That is the reason why the U.S. is trying to negotiate with China right now to get things get going. We got to talk. And China, what China needs from the U.S., they need someone to buy the products. I mean, ultimately, this cannot go on forever, right? You cannot have someone that you don't want to play with, and that person doesn't want to play with you, but yet you need each other because you got water and they have food. How long is that going to last? So basic industrial goods, I mean, it goes on and on and on and on and on and on. Lots of stuff that China is giving the U.S. that you need. So therefore, that could give the rise to a recession. Yeah, that's very simple as that. That's what gives rise to a recession. Now, of course, the other thing that could give a recession besides, but I mean, it would have to be something major, right? They would have to say we're closed, and yes, you have a recession. Monetary policy tightening. Central bank raising interest rate to fight inflation. That's what happened. If you remember, some of you should remember in the 70s and the 80s. They rose, they raised, they increased interest rates, and look what happened. Boom, you had a huge recession. Higher rates reduces borrowing, investment, and consumer demand. In 1980, Volcker led the Fed hikes to 20% to crush inflation. But only if you have inflation. Now, all these people are telling you you're going to get inflation. Okay. Fiscal austerity and policy making sharp cutbacks in government spending and premature tightening. Be careful. Right? You're cutting rates too soon. In 2010 to 2012, austerity measures deepened the Greek and Italian recessions. Premature fiscal tightening led to double-dip depression because you remove the amount of geopolitical, a war. Be careful. That is not impossible. Look what happened this weekend when Trump decided to send the submarine over to Russia. And that's the big one you have to be careful. Loss of consumer or business confidence. You keep telling everyone that things are bad, that things are not going to go well, you're going to lose your job, then you don't invest, you don't buy, you don't travel, and then you're creating your own demise, basically. That is what you need to worry about. That is what you want to do. That is the reason why you need to make sure you understand what's going on at all time. and please understand, you know, the situation. That is very important, okay? So hopefully all this was clear to you and you have a good understanding that right now, again, let me just recap this thing for you. As far as the economy is concerned, okay, we have huge amount of revision, that is a fact. We had low numbers, that's a fact. So we're going to have to decide, what's going on. And mostly the low numbers were tied to actual low amount of. I mean, healthcare was okay. It was healthcare and social services, but everything else was down. Okay, that's a fact. So we have to figure that this is not a real thing. But we have to also understand that there's less people looking for jobs. And that's why the unemployment number on the right side is only 4%, which is not a lot. We have a GDP growth of 5%, over 3%. So this is not the end of the world. China makes all these things less expensive, thus they win the market. Simple. Yes. And that's why they decided to, have them make them. And on top of that, they had more pollution, right? Now, let's double check on the pollution thing in China, but I believe that how much more pollution is there in China versus USA? Let's see, but I think that they have a lot more pollution. Whoa. So basically, total emission in China, wow, China has 30 to 35% of global emission, while the US is 11 to 12%. What proof is that coffee? It's not coffee, it's tea. In China, emission exceeded those all advanced economy combined for the first time. That's a lot. Well, I mean, so you want to make it here, or you want to have the pollution here, or you want to make it there? Well, you make it there. Well, then you've got to beg for the rare earth mineral because now that's what they have it. They have all the rare earth mineral in China, and you don't have any. And that is the concern that you should have, is you can't have your cake and eat it too. Now, of course, it would be great if everyone could get along. The problem is, I think, that in China and in Russia, you're only dealing with two people, right? Technically, Putin and the premier. So you're not dealing with a bunch of people together that decide and say, well, maybe we should all get along. Now you're dealing with the mindset of dictatorial and obviously they all want to make China great again and they want to make Russia great again. And Trump sees this. You have to understand one thing. Trump doesn't just get up in the morning and say, okay, what am I going to do today? They sit down with all these people and they come to him, and I've seen these meetings where everybody decides what is going on, what is our strategy. Because if our strategy is that we're losing relevancy, Trump isn't going to handle this. I mean, well, first of all, I have to tell you that Trump feels to me like someone is running out of time. He's running out of patience, but he's running out of time. Because the sign that you have to see, take a look how quickly he's able to change India's mind. I'm going to do a video on that because he's pressuring India right now. In fact, already he's saying, well, maybe it may not work after all. Somebody told him, don't say things like that. You're going to lose India completely. And now they're definitely going to go with Russia and China. And then what are you going to do then? Don't do what Biden did by weaponizing the dollar against Russia. Yes, I know you wanted to stop Russia from invading Ukraine, but what you did, you weaponized the dollar, meaning that you're not scaring everyone else, thinking that, oh my God, so if I don't play well with the US, you're going to take the dollar away from me, and we know we need the dollar to use everything, so that's going to be a problem. So we need to be able to pull it down a little bit. And that's what's happening right now. So Sam said Trump isn't going to handle this. First of all, he's 79 years old. Be careful what you wish for because you may get it. He's 79 years old. He's got the MAGA after him. He's got the entire world after him. He's got Ghislaine Epstein. Who knows what she's going to come up with? He may lose the bit of power that he has right now, and that's why he's trying to get these things done quickly. Now, maybe he's not. Maybe he's doing them a little bit too quickly, by upsetting the children by saying all kind of things, and it's a possibility. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. So what we're going to do over the next couple of days, we have a tremendous amount of topics to cover, and it's coming by the day, literally. First, we're going to talk about India. India wouldn't ban to energy supply. I mean, we buy uranium. RC would be the end of our dominance and start a multipolar. Yeah, you can't force. We're going to have the tariff showdown with the Swiss, believe it or not. Even the Switzerland got pissed off at the U.S. 39%. They thought this was a taco trade. Of course, the thing with the Swiss is because of pharmaceutical product. That's also a problem, and we'll talk about it later on. But because I'm losing my voice after a while, we'll talk about this stagflation at the right moment to say, are we going into a stagflation? I mean, and then of course we need to talk about AI because it's reshaping the economy. Right now, people are losing their job because of AI, and not just a job that you think. So if you're looking for jobs, think that, and because don't forget, right now there's a huge race going on in China with AI. They're creating lots of things happening. And of course, Trump is confronting the big pharmaceutical companies. All of these are going to impact you. Trust me on that. There is no way you cannot be impacted by all these events. That will definitely happen. So join me over the next couple of days. We're going to go through all these events and trying to sort it out because it's something. I will thank you very much for joining today.